Hi there and welcome to this week's video. You probably have a good sense of where I'm at, judging by the backdrop, and I can certainly say it's been a pleasure to be traveling around out here in British Columbia. I was on the island at the beginning part of this week, and now here in Vancouver in beautiful Stanley Park, spring has definitely sprung. You can tell that we're a few weeks ahead of the folks back east. In fact, the cherry blossoms have already started to disappear from the trees. This week I wanted to take a moment to address some more of our member questions. We've had numerous members join us over the last couple of weeks, and a lot more questionnaires have come in, and with that a lot more questions about what we're all about at Wheel and Anchor and how we do things. So I'm going to, without further ado, I'm going to jump right in. Monique from Pointe Claire, Quebec asked if the host meets the group in Canada, so what's the meeting point? And what about travelers from Quebec? So Monique, actually the host will generally meet the group at the arrival airport at the beginning of the tour. The reason being is that our members come from all across Canada, and we certainly don't want to compel anyone to have to fly to any one spot in order to start the tour. So you fly in from wherever it is that you're coming from, and that answers then your second question. From Quebec, or if you're from any other province, we will gladly arrange the airfare from that point of departure, wherever it is that you live in Canada. You don't have to follow a preset routing. It's whatever makes the most sense for you. Another question from Lena in Etobicoke asks what the age group is. Well, you know, Wheel and Anchor is all about travelers, and so we actually don't determine an age group. You don't have to be a senior to be with us, nor is there any minimum age per se. So I would say that the majority of our travelers right now are between about 50 years of age and 80, and we even have a few guys, a few people that are above that. And the main thing is that we're all excited travelers, and we love anybody of all ages to join us, because we have that in common. So we have a lot of fun along the way. Joanne from Bathurst, New Brunswick asked, do we do any trekking in Bhutan? Well, that's certainly quite a question. And I got to tell you, Joanne, I'm actually working as we speak on a program that I've always wanted to do to trek through the Himalayan region of Bhutan. So it's going to take a little bit of effort to make sure we have the right program, but I do hope to have that released, and we'll go sometime in 2020. So stay tuned for that as part of some of the other active programs that are on our agenda at Wheel and Anchor. Then there were a few people from Vancouver who asked whether or not we have a chapter in Vancouver. So Wheel and Anchor doesn't yet have chapters. At the same time, we have a lot of people who've asked us about volunteering to put events together, something like the ones that I've been doing as I go across the country. And so we welcome anyone that's interested in becoming a bit of a facilitator for our events, to meet other travelers in different parts of the country. Please let me know, and I will be gladly reach out to you. And ultimately, we will set things up so that we have more regularly scheduled events, not just in Southern Ontario, but across Canada. So a great question, thank you. And Joe from Portage la Prairie asked the question whether we do any trips in Canada. In fact, Joe, I had a lot of people ask this question because we have so many great things to see in Canada, and many of us haven't seen as much of our own country as we've seen of the rest of the world, myself included. So it's definitely on the agenda. I can't tell you exactly what we're going to be doing. I have my eye on a few ideas out in British Columbia for those in the east, as well as some programs perhaps in Quebec and the maritime provinces, which is of interest to those in Ontario or further west. So stay tuned for those. And Amaya from Owen Sound, Ontario asked when we're going to be doing those shorter trips that I talked about at the Zoomer show. Well, I'm sure more than a few of you remember that I mentioned our Wheel and Anchor weekends, which are short programs of 5 to 6 days in duration to places that are within a relatively short haul of Canadian cities. And so this is a program we've been working on for some time. We're not a huge organization, as many of you know, and I like to take care to curate these things myself. So we are working on the first one. In fact, it's going to be to Havana, Cuba. I'm very excited about this one. I've been discussing it at length with our partners down there, and I hope that the first one is going to be released, which will happen later this year. So you can look forward to that, Amaya, and more will follow. I had a question from Barb out in Yarmouth, Nova Scotia. When are we coming to the East Coast for events? Well, another good question, Barb. We've been busy planning our events, mostly, as you know, in central Canada. for the last several months. Now I'm out here on the beautiful West Coast, and I can't wait to come out to the East Coast, and I'm happy to announce that I've just decided to be there. In the second week of August, I'm going to be visiting Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, Prince Edward Island, as well as Newfoundland. So for all of you out there, you can look forward to that program. The dates will be released very, very soon. Just watch for them on our website, and I do hope to see you. I won't be able to travel to all corners of the Maritime provinces, but certainly if you have a group of more than 4 people, 4 travelers who are interested in what we're up to, then please let me know, and I will try to build your city or town into our agenda. And finally, one more question. Jonathan from Newmarket, Ontario asked what other river cruises we're going to offer. Of course, the first one we offered, the Elbe River from Berlin to Prague, which is happening in September of 2020. I'm about to release the second one. And as many of you will know, I try to stay away from sort of the traditional river cruise itineraries because there's so much supply, so many offerings on the market. I like to do something a little bit unique. And so we're going to be doing the Rhone River in France, traveling out of Lyon, the second largest city. I really, really love Lyon because they have such a gastronomic culture there. It exceeds even that in Paris. So our river cruise from Lyon down the beautiful Rhone Valley is also something we're finalizing and will be available in the not too distant future. So that's it for the member questions, but of course we're always happy to get them. Please send us an email, myself or Cassandra, and we'll make sure that we answer all of your questions. Just a couple of other announcements. We have 2 webinars coming up next week. On the 17th is our webinar about the Elbe River, our program from Berlin to Prague that I mentioned earlier, that is happening in September of 2020. So stay tuned. So sign up for that. There will be a link in the blog article below. And then finally, our first town hall roundtable meeting, which will talk about solo travel, the challenges, the issues, all of the problems and the concerns that people have about solo travel, and we're going to look at ways that we can perhaps create some amazing programs designed for solo travelers. That's happening on the 24th of April, so do stay tuned for that one. A lot of plane, boat, and other activity out here in Vancouver. So on that note, I'm going to say happy travels, and I look forward to catching up to you next week from another city in Canada. I'll be traveling from here east, back through Alberta, Winnipeg, Manitoba, before heading back to Ontario. So stay tuned for next week's newsletter, and as always, happy travels.